What's going on, YouTube? So the Genesis brand continues to evolve and impress, and this is the brand's best seller, the GV70. And for 2026, it was extensively refreshed, which is exactly why we were super excited to live with it for the past week. So, did day-to-day life with this GV70 prove this is a valid competitor that can take on the likes of the BMW X3? Well, let's go ahead and find out. Let's go ahead and start things off here with a spec dump and taking a look at what is under the hood. So there's two different powertrains you could choose from, a turbo 4-cylinder or this 3.5-liter twin turbocharged V6 engine. It makes 375 horsepower and it's paired to an 8-speed automatic transmission. Combined fuel economy with all-wheel drive is 21 mpg.
Now, the base price of the GV70 is $49,000, and if you're looking to buy one or any new vehicle, we'd encourage you to go to carconfections.com/newcarquotes to get the best price. Now, of course, this is a real-world 7-day review, so we have a lot of impressions to share. We also have things like our real-world fuel economy after living with it this week, as well as our official sound level reading.
But let's go ahead and close up the hood because there's a lot more to talk about with the outside and the inside than what initially meets the eye. Now, as far as the outside is concerned, when you first take a look at it, you don't see that there's a lot of changes from the 2025 model, but they did slightly revise the front grille, and there's going to be a lot more elements, of course, as we go through the rest of the vehicle. That signature crest grille has always been a very clean and classy look. It also is pretty aggressive. Genesis makes this a little bit more aggressive for 2026 with our top portion and our lower fascia here on the 3.5T models. We also have a revised logo this year, and everybody seems to react very positively to this model. As we take a look at our headlights, we've got a new micro lens crystal LED arrangement for 2026. These are beautiful to look at in the daylight, and then when the sun sets, they're absolutely excellent in terms of the actual lighting abilities. The only thing I will say is that they don't have any bending, but we'll talk more about that in an upcoming night review. Now, as we walk around to the back, we have a very athletic look.
Yeah, and it's also very elegant looking. Now, as far as design touches, we have a revised spoiler this year. We have our window wiper, Genesis spelled out across the back, and let's take a look at our taillight unit. So, of course, everything in here is going to be LED. That's standard on all models. This is your LED brake light and turn signal indicator. I like that the top brake light actually goes all the way across the back, and then you have your LED reverse lighting down here in the lower diffuser area. Speaking of the lower diffuser area, if you get a sport trim, it's going to be more aggressive, and you're also going to have the exposed exhaust outlets, otherwise they will be hidden, and you have a 3,500 pound tow rating.
Now let's move on to the wheels. We've got new options for 2026 in terms of your designs. You begin with 19-inch alloys, and then when you go to a Sport Prestige trim, you get these 21-inch alloys. I really like this design. They're a little less controversial than what they were previously, and as you can see, it gives you a nice big gap here so you can see the black finish on the Brembo brake calipers. It's all going to be body color through the wheel arches and the lower part of the body. And then in terms of our mirrors, you have standard blind spot monitoring and heating. And if you choose anything except the very base trim, you'll also get auto dimming on both the driver and passenger side with power folding.
Now, in terms of vehicle length, this comes in at 185.6 inches. And as far as design, we have darkened window surrounds for this sport model, as well as black roof rails up at the top. Now, when it comes to your safety systems, Genesis keeps things very easy. They're giving you all of those as standard equipment. That will even include things like adaptive cruise control with highway drive assist 1.0. Now, if you want to further upgrade, if you get a 3.5T model, that will give you highway drive assist 2.0, which will allow for things like auto lane change. We found those safety systems to work absolutely flawlessly this week. But arguably, there are bigger changes on the inside that we need to dive into. But first, if you're new here, we're brothers, and we've been reviewing cars since we were 12
and 16. We started young, and since then, we've reviewed over 2,000 cars at every price point.
No matter what you're looking for, from sound level readings to cargo measurements, we'd love for you to subscribe to be a part of our Car Confections family.
Let's learn a lot and have some fun with all the latest cars. And let's move on to the inside. Before we hop in, I want to show you the new key fob to the GV70. It's the same as we've seen integrated in some recent Genesis products. Pretty nice shape to this. Of course, you have a standard smart entry system. You also have the smart park system on your 3.5T models and remote start. Now walking up to the vehicle, that will fold out the mirrors when it senses your presence, and you can just reach behind the handle to unlock the door. And then let's check out the interior. So, of course, the signature thing that the GV70 has always had is just a really beautiful interior design. That part does continue for 2026, and there's a lot of kind of updates that are a little bit more subtle, and we'll get into those, of course, as we go through the interior. First, let's talk about the seats, though. So when we're talking about this model, you begin with leatherette. All of your center trims, those will come with real leather. And then only when you get to the 3.5T Sport Prestige, so that's the fully loaded model, that's where you get these seats. So this is a full Nappa leather. That is a very high-end grade of leather. You've got a lot of stitching and details throughout and quilting designs with color contrast piping. This is a very bold color choice. So this is the blue option. We have the orange accent stitching and even the orange seat belts. But of course you can get red as well and some milder options like beige and black. As far as the seats themselves, you have a ton of adjustments on board, including 4-way lumbar support. This is your power thigh extension, and you also have a massage for the driver's seat only. Over there in the door trim, we have our 2-person memory seating. But let's go ahead and climb inside. And let's look at the rest of the cabin materials. So over here on the door trim, we have really soft and high quality materials from top to bottom. So all of this is going to be finished in a leather material, and the center section with more of the color contrast stitching. Genesis does a carbon fiber trim on this version, but you can also get some different trims. And then even the bottom part is in a matching blue color and a soft touch, so that's pretty nice. Up at the top, we have more of that leather material with the stitching detail. That continues all through the center section as well. We've got that going down the console, and then more of the carbon fiber trim through the center section. I really like this interior. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic in terms of the material selections. You also notice hardly any piano black, and everything is extremely solid. Now let's fire it up with the push button start. And by the way, since we're talking about some details, kind of comparing to the long benchmark of the segment, the BMW X3, I do want to just specifically point out that the interior finishes in here are a lot better than that new generation of X3. Now, let's dig into some individual details of the interior. We'll begin with our gauge cluster. Now, this is part of a brand new 27-inch OLED screen. And as you can see, it's a beautiful design. If I get off the Android Auto, you can really see how it is one seamless piece with no division whatsoever. It's a beautiful display. It's super thin, has kind of slim bezels, and it just looks very modern and kind of almost like artwork. In terms of the gauge cluster itself, you can change several different designs. You can put the map in the background, you can customize the widget, and most models come with the blind spot camera system as well. One thing that we have is the head-up display. That's included on the top trim only. It does have some good information, such as blind spot monitoring. Now, as we pull back to the steering wheel, we've got the latest Genesis design. It's a beautiful steering wheel with a flat bottom, good stitching, nice thick feel in the hand, and even the leather-covered airbag cover. You've got a power-adjusting steering wheel, as well as rain-sensing wipers and steering wheel heating. Now, let's take a look at interior storage and see how the GV70 stacks up. Looking inside the center console, first of all, we've got the donuts inside, of course, because we like to do that here at Car Confections and compare to the competition. Today, we have 7 donuts inside. That is going to be a little on the smaller side versus the X3, but it's probably about average with most in the segment. In front of that is also where you will see your wireless phone charging pad, which is standard equipment. Then you have a couple cup holders, but in terms of additional storage, there's not really anything else. So there's no bin up here where you can stick your phone. There's no pass-through storage. So it's a little light on overall storage compared to several of the competitors. Now, as far as the shifter is concerned, we've got a beautiful glass shifter. Just twist over to D for drive. There are paddle shifters on the steering wheel. Twist to R for reverse. And when we go into reverse, here's our 360-degree camera system. This is not standard equipment, but it is on many of the trim levels. And as you can see, nice clear view. You can also go into the 3D view and spin all around the vehicle. Press that P for park, and you have electronic parking brake with brake hold. Also draw your attention to the fingerprint reader, which is used for biometric verification in the digital key system, as well as syncing your user profile. This here is for the infotainment system. If you don't want to touch the screen, we'll talk more about that in a little bit. And then you also have your drive mode controller right up here with the new terrain mode as an option. Now let's talk about the climate controls next. So this is a 3-zone automatic setup on today's tester. Standard is a dual zone automatic setup. Regardless though, you get physical controls here for the most common thing, which is adjusting your temperature, of course, up and down. The rest of it is inside of a touch panel. This panel is pretty easy to use since it is relatively bright and has haptic feedback. You can also control the back from the front as well. Heated seats are standard equipment right over there, and then many of the trims starting at the mid and up get the ventilated seats as well. Continuing that trend, you have a physical row of buttons and a volume knob for the audio system. So the advanced trims and the prestige levels are going to get a 16-speaker Bang & Olufsen sound system for 2026, and let's give it a sample right now. Very nice. Overall, we were all impressed by this sound system. It really fills up the cabin nicely. You have some advanced settings you can mess around with, but overall, it just has a nice balanced sound that's not too bass heavy or anything else. All right, so let's zero in now on the main infotainment system. So this is the Genesis software. It is exclusive to the brand, and as far as our experience with this, it all works very nicely. As you can see, you can use that knob or use it as a touchscreen. It has wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. It also has built-in navigation, which you can see right there. And some of your more advanced functionalities, you can actually go over to the little car and select that individual thing if you need to figure out where a certain setting is hiding. Up top, we have an auto-dimming mirror with HomeLink universal remotes. Some LED lighting up there. I'll slide back the really fast sunshade for the panoramic sunroof. This is standard on all but the base model, and the front panel still opens up, which is something that the X3 can no longer say.
Let's talk about the rear seats of the GV70. Now back here, we're not going to see any huge changes for 2026, which is certainly a good thing because we have a lot of space as well as a lot of features. So let's talk about space first and foremost. We're sitting at 37 inches of legroom and about 39 inches of headroom. Those are very good space figures for the segment. It's actually about an inch larger in terms of rear legroom compared to the BMW X3. And this seat is adjusted to Drew, who is 5'8". I'm 5'9". And of course, we brought along the official Car Confections ruler to see our knee room. And I'm sitting at about 6 inches of extra knee room. That's pretty good for the segment. And my feet can also slide up underneath of the seat easily. These seats I do find to be very comfortable here in the back. They even have kind of like a thigh extension jutting out. And we have the ability to recline them a good distance as well. If we fold down the center armrest, there are 2 cup holders inside that will fit a pretty decent sized water bottle. And then as far as other features, here in the center we have our rear vents. If you get the Sport Prestige models, that's where you get your own climate panel back here in the back. And then the fully loaded 3.5T Sport Prestige gets you the heated back seats. Down below, we have 2 USB ports as well as a household style outlet to keep everything charged up. And then over on the door trim, it's a beautifully crafted door trim. We have features like rear window sunshades. That's included on your higher end examples. And then you have leather really from top to bottom on this door trim. They didn't cheap out at all. And we also have a really nice piece of carbon fiber. There's additionally quite a bit of door storage. It easily swallows up a bottle of this size right there. And walking up to the tailgate, we have a standard hands-free power one. You can use the button right there, or it does have the functionality when you just approach. It'll beep a couple times and open up. And let's talk about overall cargo capacity in the GV70. So this area doesn't change either. So we're sitting at 29 cubic feet behind the second row of seats and 57 cubic feet with those seats folded down. That does mean that the all-new BMW X3 is a bit larger in terms of cargo capacity, but it's a pretty good amount of space for this segment. And speaking of this segment, if you happen to be cross-shopping with any of its rivals, we'd encourage you to go to carconfections.com/vehicle rankings. The reason you do that is because we've actually gone through all the options in the segment and ranked them in individual categories. Things like cargo capacity, interior technology, luxury features, value, powertrain, reliability, resale value, all of that is detailed for you. So if you want to make an informed buying decision, we definitely encourage you to utilize our tool at carconfections.com/vehicle rankings. Now back to the GV70, the seats fold 60-40 split, and one of the things I'm really happy to tell you is that they have handles back here, so you can easily just reach over here and fold those seats down to get them completely flat with the floor without having to go up to the second row. Let's get our cargo length, width, and height figures as well. So as far as overall cargo length, we're looking at about 72 inches of it behind Drew's 5'8" driving position. From behind the second row seats, 36 inches. Overall opening is 40 inches wide, and then height is 28 inches tall. So the height is not going to be fantastic, but overall the cargo dimensions are pretty good. And then the load-in height is coming in at only about 30 inches. Underneath of the floor, you will find a spare tire and then maybe just a little bit of extra space underneath. Well, guys, here we are behind the wheel of the refreshed Genesis GV70. In this test drive, we'll be talking about quite a lot, as you can see on the screen right now. We'll also be discussing things like our real-world fuel economy. We can finally get our official Kentucky sound level reading as well. But first, we need to start with a hard acceleration.
All right, 60 miles an hour with this GV70. So with this model, as we talked about the spec dump, you got two different powertrains. That's the same for 2026. So you can get a 2.5 liter turbo 4-cylinder for your lower end examples, or this if you really want the power. This is a 3.5 liter twin turbocharged V6 engine, and it makes 375 horsepower. So definitely a nice amount of power for the segment. It really gets up to speed quite easily and has just a smooth, refined sound. Yeah,
0 to 60 on this is going to be sitting right around the 5-second to 60 range. And like Drew said, I think really the key for this V6 engine is just the level of refinement. It is very refined, even upon a full throttle acceleration like that. It really does not sound strained at all. Now, the base powertrain on the GV70 is also nothing to snub your nose at. It's a 2.5 liter turbo 4-cylinder, making 300 horsepower, 311 pound-feet of torque. So really, you're not paying a huge penalty in terms of overall power or performance for getting the 4-cylinder option. I think for most of you guys that will be upgrading to the V6, is probably just going to be more about the level of refinement and luxurious feel of this V6.
Yeah, it definitely has a nice smooth sound. There's also a little bit of engine noise amplification. We have it on the low setting, but you can turn it up to be loud or completely off if you don't want any type of kind of that extra sporty thing coming through the speaker. Let's also talk about the transmission. We've got an 8-speed automatic transmission on board. Just like in other Genesis products, we're quite satisfied with this transmission. It's good and smooth in normal driving. When you put your foot down, you don't have to wait too long to get a downshift and get the power in the power band.
And as far as how power is routed to the ground, the GV70 is all-wheel drive exclusive, so you have that as standard equipment. And now that we've turned out into the highway portion of our drive, let's talk about overall ride quality. Now, this is an area where Genesis says they have improved for 2026, and we drove it originally back in Texas, and we were impressed with their improvements, and I think throughout the week, this week, we were additionally impressed. I think they really have made some nice upgrades to the GV70 when it comes to what's under the vehicle instead of just design on the inside and outside. The hydro bushings have been improved to have 30% less road vibration, and we also have an adaptive suspension on this fully loaded example. That's going to mean altogether you have really good ride quality for the segment. You'll see that demonstrated as we go over these bridge abutments. There is, just minimal intrusion inside of the cabin, and I really think that for those of you that, want a little bit of sporty as well as the comfort on a longer road trip, you'll be very satisfied with what they've done to kind of balance the two with each other.
Yeah, and it just feels so solid as well. A lot of people, of course, in the comments say that Genesis is just a Hyundai or whatever, but, this is a bespoke platform just for Genesis, and you can tell that they really paid attention to the details from the very beginning to make it equivalent to, whatever BMW and Mercedes has out.
Now, one of the other areas where Genesis said they made some improvements for 2026 was in the cabin insulation. So we are going to officially be putting that to the test here in today's video. I'm going to put it on fan speed 1. The rear climate is off, and we're going to see how quiet this GV70 is. Fantastic. 51.6 decibels is what we are sitting at as our official Kentucky sound level reading for the refreshed Genesis GV70. We don't have to sit here and guess how it compares to its rivals. We can find that at carconfections.com/sound level readings. And not only is that an improvement over the previous GV70s that we have tested pre-refresh, that is the quietest option in the entire luxury compact segment. It's going to beat out things like Mercedes GLC, the BMW X3, which we've also tested on this exact same strip of road. So this is a really incredibly quiet cabin. They've done a lot under the vehicle to make it quiet. The glass is super thick up here on all the windows, and we even have these little pins that is trying to actively cancel out the noise, and you can really feel that when you get behind the wheel. It is library quiet in here.
Alright, so it's the time of the video to turn out in the country road and get into dynamics. Now, as you'd expect from a vehicle where the trim level is called Sport Prestige, that really describes this vehicle quite well because it's balancing sport and luxury. And as Mason was talking about with the ride quality, the adaptive suspension, as soon as you go into sport mode, that makes a big difference, guys. It really firms up, and you'll see that kind of demonstrated when I go around this corner. You can just feel how tight everything is. You don't have much body roll at all. Good control. Throttle response is going to get way more aggressive. The steering gets a lot more firm. And look at that response. Really nice stuff. This is certainly quite sporty. I don't know if it's quite as sporty as the X3 M50 out on the back road, but it is pretty close, I have to say. They've done a great job of just balancing, again, that luxury and sport dynamic.
Now, I'm sure you're curious about fuel economy as well, so I'll give you the EPA numbers first and foremost. We're sitting at 21 mpg combined for this V6 version, or 23 mpg if you choose the 4-cylinder version. But what's our real-world fuel economy after living with it? Well, we drove this GV70 quite a lot. We really enjoyed driving it. So 366 miles this week is how many miles that we put on it. And most of those were on the highway, and we're sitting at 21.7 miles per gallon. Now, that is not great fuel economy. And the thing about it is that the highway figure for this V6 is supposed to be sitting close to about 25, and we're, like I said, sitting under 22 mpg, and that was the vast majority of it in highway driving, and really not driving all that aggressively, honestly. So one of the things about this vehicle that is certainly not great is the fuel economy department. It's not great EPA rated wise, and we're actually experiencing worse fuel economy in this model than what the EPA is saying. So that's a big area where some of its rivals, like the X3 with their mild hybrid systems, the GLC as well, will do much better than the GV70.
Yeah, and I think we can go ahead and declare that today's airball. The engine itself, like we said, nice and smooth, but the fuel economy does let you down quite a bit. Also, the lack of mild hybrid means the auto start-stop system is not particularly smooth, so it's certainly something that this week we found ourselves always pushing this off button.
And they do make it easy, though.
Yeah, it's in a nice spot, but you can see there's a lot of fingerprints on it because we've been hitting it a lot.
And what's our slam dunk? Well, what we're going to say is just really this whole package. I think Genesis already had one of the very best options in the segment. They refreshed it this year to give you the new technology, and they didn't really mess with the exterior design. They've also improved the sound insulation, the ride quality. Really, this is a fantastic package overall, so pretty much the rest of it is a slam dunk in our book. And it pretty much goes without saying. Do we like it better, the same, or worse after living with it? Definitely better. This is a vehicle that really just integrates into your life very nicely. They've made a lot of improvements for the model, and we actually lived with a BMW X3, the all-new one, the M50, for a week. And honestly, I think this thing runs circles around that model in a lot of respects, besides for things like the fuel economy. Now let's talk pricing for the GV70. Now, when it comes to the base price, we're sitting at about $49,000. And then if you want to go all the way up to this 3.5T Sport Prestige, you're sitting at about $71,000. Now, this particular model, we have the 2026. It's fully loaded. We also have the optional paint as well as the NFC key card. 1450 destination, we're sitting at $72,225 as tested today. I do want to point out, since this model came out, they have raised the price $1,000 as a mid-year price increase, so this one would actually be more like $73,000 instead of $72,000. And as far as where this vehicle is manufactured, this one was made in Montgomery, Alabama, so it was built in the U.S. You can also get versions that are built in Korea, though. Now, if you're looking to buy a GV70 or any new vehicle, we'd encourage you to go to carconfections.com/newcarquotes. The reason you do that is because we have a tool on our website that will connect you with local car dealers in your area to get you the best price. It's also going to give you access to invoice pricing information, which is a great tool to use while negotiating. If you'd like to take advantage of that, as well as things like our monthly payment tool, you can find a link to that in our video description, as well as a pinned comment down below. But buying a vehicle is about more than just the original MSRP, so let's talk about resale and reliability. First up, let's talk about resale value. As an economics graduate myself, we took the time to develop what we think is a good estimate for this Genesis GV70's potential resale value. We estimate that after 5 years and 60,000 miles, it would be worth 42.08% of original MSRP, and after 10 years and 120,000 miles, 12.47%. Now, it's worth noting that those are lower than industry average by resale value percentage. However, it is actually above some of the German competition, such as BMW, Mercedes-Benz, and Audi.
Now, we've also done the same for reliability by developing the Combined Reliability Index. This takes into account several reliability studies from trustworthy sources and combines them in a way that gives you a holistic picture. Now, in this regard, Genesis is rated right at the overall industry average for all vehicle makes.
Now, if you'd like to learn more about our resale values, our reliability data, or our methodology, be sure to go to carconfections.com/resale and carconfections.com/reliability. Buying a new vehicle is a very big decision, so you want to make sure you're making a smart purchase, especially if you're cross-shopping between different vehicle brands. Now, when it comes to your warranty, you have a 5-year, 60,000-mile basic warranty, a 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty. You do additionally get 3 years and 36,000 miles of complimentary maintenance, which makes this the very best luxury car warranty out there. And guys, that wraps up our in-depth 7-day review of the 2026 refreshed Genesis GV70. If you enjoyed watching this video or found it helpful in your purchasing decisions, which we hope you did, we'd appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button down below. By subscribing, you're going to be a part of our Car Confections family. We have a lot of fun on this channel, and I promise you won't want to miss out on our latest content. If you're already a part of our family, thank you so much for your continued support, and we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.